Like generationally, I still see my kids and stuff. It's all Apple Music and Spotify, and that's how they listen to music. I think that as we see things less stable with some of the listening platforms, like there can be contract issues and all of a sudden an artist's catalog can disappear from the DSPs. And now it doesn't matter that you have even bought that on Apple Music or whatever. You don't have that music anymore because it's been taken off. I think we're going to see a circle back to actually owning a physical copy in one form or another, whether that's CDs or vinyl or whatever. I think there's going to be at least a component of that becomes more prevalent again. So I know.
I really hope you're right.
Yeah.
For the sake of all musicians who are trying to make a living.
The income from streaming is
it's not worth it.
Pitiful.
Yeah. Somebody said, if you, at one point, if you had a hit record, you could go out and buy a house with a pool.
Yeah.
Today, if you have a hit record, you might be able to afford a cup of coffee. I think Taylor Swift could just go out and buy Spotify and then tear it down.
I wish she would. Welcome to the Vocal Lab. I'm Sarah Ramsey, and this show aims to pull back the curtain on the entertainment industry, where veterans give up-and-coming artists some of the information they wish they'd had when they were just starting out. Sort of a music industry primer, if you will. Welcome to the Vocal Lab. Today, I am thrilled to have with me Bill Sample, who is a celebrated composer, producer, arranger, and pianist with a career spanning over 5 decades. A first-call musician in Vancouver, Bill has performed alongside legends like Ray Charles, Mel Tormé, and Robben Ford. As David Foster's longtime musical director, he shared the stage with icons such as Celine Dion, Bryan Adams, and Peter Cetera. Bill's work has earned him numerous accolades, including playing on the Grammy-winning Ratatouille soundtrack, induction into the BC Entertainment Hall of Fame, and the Queen's Diamond Jubilee Medal. His band, Wild Blue Herons, co-founded with Darlene Cooper, has released 2 acclaimed albums with their 3rd in progress. His other works include his jazz trio album, Small, and a solo piano Christmas album, We Three Kings. Bill holds a degree in music composition from the University of Victoria and studied at the Berklee College of Music. Thanks for joining me today, Bill.
Thanks for having me. Boy, I sound impressive.
You are impressive, my friend. We were just saying before we started rolling that, we've known each other a long time. I was a teenager, I think, and I remember you very fondly with orange hair. I still think of you with orange hair because that's how you looked when in my young years.
The Annie Lennox look. Yes,
Annie Lennox look.
That was a good time.
It was.
That doesn't work for me anymore, but I'm glad you remember it.
You've just moved on to orange socks instead. So do you want to tell us your story briefly for listeners who might be meeting you for the first time today? A bit about your journey, who you are, all of the good stuff.
Sure. I actually got into music sort of sideways because I wasn't aiming for a career in music. I didn't even know what that looked like. I thought if you were in music, you were a teacher. Both my parents were teachers, and so I was heading for a degree in marine biology, and I was going to be an oceanographer because I loved the whole undersea world. Jacques Cousteau, all that stuff, fascinating, and then because it was those days, the 70s, I applied for a scholarship in science and didn't get it. But at the same time, the Department of Music offered me a scholarship in music. And I thought, well, really, I'll give this a shot for 1 year. Yeah. So I went into the University of Victoria Music Department. It was pretty new when I started. I'm not going to put a year to that. And I never looked back.
Yeah.
But still, in those days, the University of Victoria, well, any college in Canada, I would say, did not offer music instruction in anything but classical.
Yeah.
So there was the very, very modern, far out stuff, which is what I had to study.
Mm-hmm.
But my heart was already in jazz and pop and rock. And so I went to Berklee College, where I had my aha moment musically.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of wish that I had stayed there longer. I only did 2 semesters,
Mm-hmm.
but it was enough to launch my career. And I guess I got to Vancouver because of a band that did really well, based in Victoria. We were called the Sample Stearns Band, and that band got me off the island.
Mm-hmm.
Thank God. And nothing wrong with the island, but there wasn't a lot to do there.
Yeah.
So we just found ourselves these 6 very competent players in the Sample Stearns Band. We moved to Vancouver. Well, we started playing in Vancouver. I eventually moved to Vancouver when the band ceased to exist.
Mm-hmm.
And we're all still really close and good friends, and we all have careers in music.
Mm-hmm.
You probably know everybody in that band.
That's Maury Stearns, right?
Maury Stearns, Jerry Adolph,
Yeah.
Lee Oliphant,
Yeah.
Norm McPherson, and April Philodosa.
Okay, that's the only one I don't know.
Right. She came up from Los Angeles,
Okay.
where we met her.
Yeah.
And just with the intention of doing one show and then stayed.
Really?
We were a band for about 5 years. We signed a record deal with David Foster right at the bad time, worst time we could have done that, which is the music industry was sort of eating itself, which it does periodically, right? So all of the kind of progressive pop bands that we were trying to be like were being replaced by bands like the Knack,
Mm-hmm.
who were very poppy, one-hit wonders in the case of the Knack. But we never got our record deal.
Mm.
And so I became a freelance musician in the city of Vancouver, where I met your parents.
Yeah.
Miles was one of the producers that started hiring me, and your mom and I became songwriters together.
Yeah.
For a long time.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's a short version of my career. maybe way too long.
No, not way too long at all. And you've been working steadily in Vancouver anyway for ever since.
That sounds like 44 years to me.
That's got a nice ring to it.
Yeah, half a piano.
So here on the Vocal Lab, we aim to shine a light into the industry through the lens of what I know now that I wish I'd known then. With that in mind, what do you wish you'd known when you were first starting out?
I've tried to give this some thought because I knew it was coming, but I don't think I would have changed a thing.
Mm-hmm.
Because what I've, in hindsight, come to believe about how it all works is you learn by making the mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
And believe me, there was lots of those. And hopefully one day you get most of it right.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I would have changed the thing. I might have stayed in Berklee longer. I might have practiced more to get better technique. But at the same time, I was really anxious to get out there and play music. So, as you know, practicing is just one piece of the puzzle. And the actual getting it in front of people, getting their reactions, seeing what works is the other piece. I'm still there.
Well, and you can't do it without doing it. Like you can't practice that part of it without actually being out there and doing it. You can't learn
Correct.
that in a practice room.
No.
Conversely, is there anything you would absolutely have made sure to do again if you were starting over?
Yes. I would make records younger in my life.
Mhm.
I didn't get a record out until I was mid-30s.
Mm-hmm.
And one thing I've learned about the music business is they're not all that interested in people when they hit a certain age.
Mm. Yep.
But another thought I had was, if I had a time machine,
Mm-hmm.
there's a couple of times in history that I would have loved to have explored. And one of them would have been Paris in the 1890s, early 1900s.
Yeah.
Which was a really interesting time, called the banquet years, because artists from all walks of life actually sat at the table together, worked together. It was a really interesting time.
Wow.
So you'd have like Picasso doing sets for the Ballet Russe. Great musicians of the time like Satie.
Yeah.
Would be doing scores for these ballet pieces. And they all worked together, and they all got together and partied at the house of Gertrude Stein.
Wow.
Yes. That was a really interesting time.
No kidding. I am not, I think I disappointed my father terribly on this score, but history is not my strong point. And I was not aware of that.
It's not really my strong point either, but I did check them out just because I found it fascinating.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other time period, of course, that I would have loved to have experienced would have been the jazz scene in New York City in the 40s and 50s,
Mm-hmm.
when all those major players were just discovering themselves,
Yeah.
like Miles and Coltrane and
Yeah.
Charlie Parker. Wow. What a time to be in.
What a time to be alive.
Yeah. But getting back to your earlier question, I think I might not have been the same person if I had been, say, born in New York City,
Mm-hmm.
as the guy got born in Saskatchewan and ended up in Vancouver.
Mm-hmm.
I had different opportunities
Yeah.
for sure than what I would have had. But you make your own way. I mean, I would do gigs with people I didn't know, and that would make me a different person. And every session I ever did taught me something.
Yeah.
Not always good. Yeah. Anyway, we are the sum of our experiences, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, part of the reason that I ask all my guests that set of questions is because I think it's so fascinating that the vast majority of people say they wouldn't change anything. And I think it's really easy to romanticize backwards. Oh, if only this had happened, or if only that had happened, I would have accomplished this or that. But when we actually sit down and think about it, the vast majority of people, their answer is, I wouldn't be who I am now if I hadn't done what I did then. So
Yeah.
no, I wouldn't change anything. And that's a common thread.
Well, if I could just add one more log to the fire, the word romance kind of ignited this memory. I moved to Paris when I was 27
Really?
to find myself there.
Mm-hmm.
I was looking for, a career in jazz.
Mm-hmm.
I was going to be a jazz pianist living in Paris, and it just rang all the right.
It's a pretty
bells.
romantic notion.
I didn't find it.
Yeah.
But what I found was, I was sitting in a bar in Paris with like not a lot of money left, had to make a decision. And on the radio came the Eagles song, The Shirt I'm Wearing.
Yes.
And
I don't know if you can see that low. It's Hotel California.
Hotel California rocked my universe.
Yeah.
And I went, what am I doing here?
Yeah.
I need to be back on the West Coast.
Yeah.
I know that music. That's what I do. And so I ended up back in Montreal, and eventually got my I got a gig in California, which is where I met April,
Yeah.
who joined the Sample Stearns Band.
Yeah.
So that was a huge series of events that wouldn't have happened if I hadn't gone to Paris.
Yeah. Yeah. It's experiences grow out of one another.
Exactly.
So we are in an industry that sees widely differing levels of education.
Mm-hmm.
Some very formal, some very self-taught, some, cobbled together somewhere in between. As you mentioned, you have lots of formal education, UVic and Berkeley. Do you want to talk a little bit about how your musical education has impacted your career?
I became the arranger for a number of jingle companies in my 30s. Partly because I had this skill, I was able to write music down.
Yeah.
And I took that for granted, I've been doing this since grade 4. I was basically teaching the class because I knew more than my grade 4 teacher.
I had the same experience in high school.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, so I would be the arranger on all the sessions. This was way before we had computers that would make it easier to write things down. So it was all by hand. So I remember the day would go something like this. Don't let me get too far off the topic here. I would show up on the morning of the session and cut the beds with the rhythm section. And then because I was usually the arranger, I would wait and we'd add vocals and I would assist the producer in that part of the session. And then I'd go home and write horn parts and string parts, having just heard what was there already. Just so we couldn't do it all in one day because I needed the time to go write the score and then write all the parts by hand. And then we'd be back the next morning. There was no copyists in those days. It wasn't a job yet.
And the charts were huge. I actually, funny enough, last week found a box of charts, score charts, not just lead sheets, but score charts of my mom's tunes from, I don't know, over the years. And those charts, like the band charts, it's not it's not bars one after the other on a page like this. It's like the whole page is just 1 8 section or 1 4-bar section or whatever, because you've got so many different parts, one under the other. And that's a thing that I guess in some contexts you do see now, but most people don't see those kind of charts now, I think. No. Unless you're playing maybe in a big band or something like that, where you might see more of those kind of charts.
Well, it certainly changed the game for me. I started writing charts for the David Foster Band once I got in it, because, well, David could have done it, but he just doesn't do that. Yeah. He's got more important things to do. Yeah. So he gave me that responsibility, and I would write these charts. And then just so happened, we would do a show once a year. And this one year, a woman named Deb Sanderson showed up on the boat cruise that followed the day after the concert. And I was sitting right beside her, and we got to chatting, and she found out that I was like the music director for the show. She said, I'm producing the telethon next year, and I'm looking for a music director. Mm-hmm. Would you be interested? I said, yes, of course. And so that started what became a 10-year gig for me in Vancouver, but it led to 18 telethons in Saskatchewan. They have a really great telethon out there called Telemiracle. Yeah. And this is all because I could write charts.
Well, and I know my dad talked about, like, he had a radio show on CBC in the 60s, and he was singing with a big band. And he always used to say, I think it was Dave Robbins that conducted that band. And he told the story that he got that gig because he could read, because he could read the charts. So he could do it with very little rehearsal Whereas a singer that couldn't read could not do that because it was, so again, that skill of the skills that come with the education in music, they make a difference. They lead to, or in those circumstances anyway, they led to work that, and I guess that's like in your case, it's funny. My next question is actually about this, but it sort of differentiates between being your ability to take a gig being a player versus, which, let's face it, you can in some genres at least, you can be a player without reading.
Yeah,
that's totally doable, especially in the more like pop rock end of things. Maybe less so in jazz, but not as a musical director. That I mean, at least to my perspective, never having been a musical director, but I would think that would be pretty impossible without reading and writing charts.
I would think so too.
Yeah.
I'm very grateful that I learned to read at an early age. It's not only, it's really informed me too. I can listen to stuff and actually visualize it in real time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not sure where we're headed next, but are you familiar with the name Jacob Collier?
Yes.
Okay, so I think with him in the world, we're in really good shape for the future.
Yeah.
The future of music. The guy is a genius.
Agreed.
He's basically blown away all the heavies on the planet, including the great Quincy Jones, who passed away recently.
Yeah. Yeah.
Quincy heard Jacob Collier as a 22-year-old and went to him and said, I want to produce your records. Jacob said, no, I'm producing my own record, but thank you very much. Can you imagine? And I've been following Jacob Collier's career. He's been teaching Herbie Hancock advanced concepts in harmony. I don't even understand these advanced concepts, and I think I'm relatively advanced.
Yeah,
but I'm not on the same in the same universe as him. He's talking about negative harmony.
I don't even know what that term means.
Me neither.
Yeah. Okay.
And I guess Herbie didn't either.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you've seen him live, but
I've never seen him live. I've seen clips of him playing live.
We've been to 3 shows now. The first one where he came out on stage with a bunch of instruments, and there was 2 guys running computers at the side of the stage, and it was just heavy. We expected, a kid with some backing tracks, but it wasn't that at all. This was a guy who could connect with the audience, who looked you in the eye and sang these heartfelt songs while playing piano like Chick Corea. And then he would get off the piano and play the bass while singing something else. It was just kind of jaw-dropping.
Yeah.
And then we saw him with a band.
Mm-hmm.
Again, out of this world. The only criticism I could have, and I don't know why I have to have one, is that he didn't give his band members enough space. It was sort of all about him.
Yeah.
But wow. And then we just saw.
He's young.
He's young.
It's hard to, it's funny when someone is so brilliant that way. I think sometimes we forget that they're actually still young. So maybe that concept of giving your band members space just hasn't gotten there yet.
Yeah.
I love watching what he does with audiences and how he brings the audience along to become part. Like, those are the clips that I've seen a lot of, where he turns the audience into a choir.
Mm-hmm.
And now obviously he attracts a relatively musical audience because his audience holds a tune very well. But the fact that he does all that choral stuff and conducts them and creates these beautiful, intricate, moving harmonies with untrained singers, just a theater full of people.
Yeah.
It's quite astounding, and I love how much that actually involves people in the process.
Me too.
Yeah.
I kind of almost get it, but I'm not going to try it.
Yeah.
No.
It would be terrifying.
It would be terrifying. And I've recently seen him doing it with a full orchestra.
Wow.
Not conducting the orchestra.
Yeah.
Conducting the audience to be the choir.
Yeah.
But he's got an orchestra on stage. And, orchestras don't really improvise. So there was no room for people to stray.
Yes.
If you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And they were bang on. He would lower one pitch to fit the next chord, raise one pitch, lower both, raise both, lower both, raise both. Yeah, it's just out of this world.
Yeah.
And a really nice guy. We met him.
Yeah.
My brain froze. I became
a fangirl.
A fan. Oh my God. I mean, I've played with some really big names.
Yeah, you have.
And my brain didn't freeze.
Yeah.
Like Celine Dion. She kissed me here. She was 22. Jake Collier, I'm talking to him and my brain has gone bye-bye. Fortunately, my wife was there and she was able to say a few words to him. Anyway.
Well, speaking of that, do you want to talk about the important relationships in your career? And you can answer it however you want. I'm not necessarily asking for like name dropping, but I am referring to the kinds of relationships that we form over the course of a career that help us navigate. And those can be personal relationships, those can be professional relationships. But I think it's important to understand how much relationships affect our careers from both perspectives, actually, our ability to do our job and they always talk about how sales is relationship based. I think music is relationship based.
I've noticed that certainly in Vancouver, we form a lot of allies and we often don't stray from those allies. We're very loyal.
Yes.
And it's interesting. I'm now kind of close to the end of a career.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm still playing with people that I started playing with in my late 20s, 30s. Mm-hmm. It's just really interesting. As far as musicians that have connected, that I've connected to personally, wow, it's going to be kind of a long list, but my writing partner, Darlene Cooper,
mm-hmm.
talking to her, she's right over there. She's one of the best musicians on the planet. And I'm not saying that because I'm really biased, although of course. We met during doing the Marcus Mosely chorale. She came in as an alto and quickly got catapulted into being the choir conductor.
Mm-hmm.
And I was the music director. So we had a close working relationship and it ended up writing songs and working on arrangements together. And we shared the same skill set. Mm-hmm. It was just scary. So we do the same things at the same time. She might call a chord slightly different than I would. But yeah, that's been probably the biggest person that has affected my life, personal person.
Can we just go ahead and say it? It was a successful enough writing partnership that y'all went and married each other. That's what I would call a successful writing partnership.
Yes. I haven't married any of my other co-writers. And I don't think I ever will. Just this one. We're writing really good songs.
Yeah.
It's funny because, it's late in life
Mm-hmm.
We met late in life.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the songs we do, it's not one of our songs, but An Older Man is like an elegant wine, which we do as a part of our set. That was a Nancy Wilson song.
Yeah. Okay.
Not the singer from Heart, but the jazz
the
singer
jazz singer
who passed away not long ago.
Did she? I didn't know that either.
She was amazing.
Yes, she was. She was.
But I got a shout out here, to Maury Stearns as well, who I met in my, I guess, early 20s.
Mm-hmm.
And we had a very intense, roughly 10 years together in the Sample Stearns band. And then after that, Maury became the main producer, Seacoast Sound, who were kind of in competition with GGRP and Coco. And I was in demand. I would be over there pretty much 2 or 3 times a week.
And he was that was on the island in Victoria, right?
Yeah.
Because I remember, I remember the name from my childhood, and it was clearly still a friendly relationship because he and my dad
they were buddies.
They were buddies. Yeah. And I remember that.
I think Maury actually played with your dad.
Quite possibly.
I wasn't around those days, but Maury actually lived in Vancouver and worked with Terry Clark and Don Thompson.
Okay.
And did shows at the Cave. And he told me stories about your dad before I even met your dad.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he was another important person in my life.
Yeah. It is a thing that I see sometimes with greener artists coming up that want what they want now and don't yet understand about the long tail impact of things and the fact that building a relationship in this business is a big part of it. So make friends, not enemies. That kind of thing. I mean, have your boundaries and do, take care of yourself too. I don't mean don't do that, but I do mean don't forsake the, what is it? Trees for the forest for the trees. Big picture. Keep the eye on the big picture, because sometimes the people that you piss off now, 10 years from now, are the people who are whatever, booking the big gig or doing the whatever. And so it's good to nurture the relationships.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Couldn't agree more.
In your work as a musical director, other than the impact of being able to read music and write charts, do you want to talk about how that differs then from being a player, a band member? Like, what are the actual sort of roles and responsibilities that make that a different gig?
I think to be a good musical director, you have to be encouraging.
Mm-hmm.
You have to be really organized.
Mm-hmm.
You're supposed to know how it goes before you present it.
Mm-hmm.
And respect is a very big part of it. And I think if it's like kind of developing good credit,
Mm-hmm.
if you can get the respect of the musicians you're working with, that could be really helpful in the long run.
Yes.
Because people will pick up the phone when you call and they'll show up because they know this is going to be all right. We're going to get paid.
Yeah.
There will be a gig.
Yeah.
Bill will tell us what's coming and put the charts in front of us. It's all going to be good.
Yeah.
So, you're kind of responsible. And I always felt like I'm on the side of the band.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been told by several people in the biz that as the music director, you should be on the side of the client. I never looked at it that way.
Mm-hmm.
So I would write up the contract and my name would be, my name would be at the top of the list along with all the musicians. And I would sign on the right side, and the producer, whoever was paying the band, would sign on the left.
Yeah.
I didn't feel like I was, I'm obviously working for him.
Yeah.
We are the band, and we're working for him.
Yeah.
And I don't mean, I guess I have to get a little bit more specific. I don't mean in recording environments, but like in TV
Yeah.
or film environments where the producer is not a musician.
Right.
He's a guy quite often from out of town who's in here to get the best deal he can and get out of town.
When you're dealing with a non-musician in a production situation, they don't always understand, or they mostly don't understand the impact of what they are asking for from a musician too. If, you know, whatever it might be, those things have ramifications. I don't know. I haven't been in those kind of situations, but I know even just playing in a band when they're hiring you to play on an outside stage and it's windy and you can't hear sound from one side of the stage to the other. Those are things that a producer who isn't a musician, doesn't understand the impact of all of those kind of things, but a band leader who is a musician does understand all of those impacts. So being on the side of the band is a good thing.
Yeah, and sometimes these producers, if they're not musicians, they would come up and grind me, thinking that I'm going to go back to the band and say, yeah, we're not getting the dollars that I asked for, but it's still going to be good. I was really tough in those negotiating situations, and I probably lost work over it. But I maintained my integrity.
Yeah.
And respect from the players, right? I don't want to get into specifics, but there have been some really explosive situations that I had to deal with as the, not just the musical director, but sometimes that just meant being the guy that put the contract together.
Yeah.
And there are some really big names, you know, and there was some tension involved. Refusal to sign, disagreement about what it is we're actually doing. This is a TV show. No, it isn't a TV show. You know, just that kind of stuff.
That seems like a cut and dry, black and white kind of choice.
It does to me too, until you get in bed with somebody who doesn't think it's a clear choice.
Yeah.
So I was told, yes, this isn't a TV show. And so I said, well, we just had a camera rehearsal and there's 6 cameras here. Well, it might be a TV show if we like the footage. And so I had to actually phone Musicians Union and say, I need some help here. If the TV cameras are rolling, is that, are we on the TV scale?
Yeah. Or
do we wait until they package an evening worth of music into a 2-hour show and then get paid for 2 hours?
Right.
No, you're getting paid for the session, not the show.
Yeah.
But that's something I learned in the trenches, right?
Yeah.
I learned it that night.
Yeah.
Getting that darn thing signed.
Well, and I would expect that there's a different skill set required to be able to navigate all of those hard, sticky parts. That's all the, the tension and all of that, without then sharing the tension with the rest of the band, and then being able to go show up at your instrument and play and not have that spill over into the performance field. That's its own skill set too.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think I've lost it twice. And I'm not going to go there, but
nope. That's okay.
Mostly I've been able to package it away. You know, I can handle this stress really, really well.
Yeah.
And I don't bring it into the room with me.
Yeah.
It stays, on the contract.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like showing up for a gig and there's TV cameras there.
Yeah.
And you're just on a gig. It's not no one's told you there's TV cameras there.
Yeah.
And so as the musical director, you go, well, why are these cameras here? Because we're on a union contract.
Yeah.
We're not allowed to have our show taped by cameras. This may be all different now because we're in a whole different age now with digital cameras and everybody's phone and so forth. But back then, it was a no-no.
Well, and the premise remains when you're on a union contract, anything that is outside of the union contract is a no-no.
Yeah.
That's that. The union does not look kindly upon you straying outside the lines.
So as the guy who put the contract together, I would be the guy that had to go up and say, so what is that camera doing here?
Mm-hmm.
And they would say, oh, they're just going to show it in the corner on the big screens. And I said, well, you mean they're not actually filming? Oh, they're keeping it for archive purposes. And can I get the name of the TV crew? Yeah. And they would actually give me the name, and it was an actual television company.
Yeah.
Can't mention any names.
No, you don't need to.
But yeah, that used to be the way it was.
Yeah.
There was always a little battle to be fought.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, back in those days, that was me.
Let's talk about Wild Blue Herons. So in 2017, you and Darlene Cooper formed Wild Blue Herons and released your album On the Outside. And in November of 2021, Wild Blue Herons released their second album, You and I. And you guys got married somewhere in there. So do you want to talk about that project a little bit?
Yeah. So the first album was at a tumultuous time.
Mm-hmm.
It was the end of my marriage.
Mm-hmm.
It was the end of her marriage.
Mm-hmm.
We weren't sure what we were doing together. We were just doing music together.
Mm-hmm.
And we never got a chance to really promote that record because COVID came along.
Mm-hmm.
But during COVID, we found all this time. And I think a lot of musicians found this time. And my good buddy Sherry Elrick said it really well. She said, I've never had a moment in my whole career where I haven't been super busy. Well, all of a sudden, we started finishing songs that were half written. I finished my Christmas record that was half done. We did a whole record of standards, which from scratch, we did it all at home. And it got reviews. It got charted.
Yeah.
I was blown away. You thought, we can actually do this, And then my piano kind of decided it was done. So we waited until we found the right piano. Now we're recording album number 3.
Yeah.
I know your folks had a studio at home. I was there many times. It sounds like you should be able to get a lot done when you've got a studio at home.
That's the great lie of having a studio at home.
It's really hard to find the time.
Yeah.
Because you're at home.
Yeah.
And so there's, it's time to take out the garbage. It's
There's
recycling
dishes
day.
to be done, grass to be mown, whatever. A million things to do.
Got to do the Christmas shopping.
Yeah.
So yeah, we've got to get better at this. We've got to figure out how do we prioritize working, in the studio.
Yeah.
Which is also our house concert room.
Yes. Which I'm going to ask you about in just a minute because I just think that's a super cool thing.
Yeah. Anyway, we've started to morph a little bit away from being a sort of a jazz influenced poppy band.
Yeah.
Into a little bit more funk.
Okay.
Right now we're doing a horn band.
Yeah.
And it's really exciting. I get to try out my horn chops again.
Yeah.
And we're
You mean writing or playing?
Writing. No, I did play.
Did you?
I did. I played trombone. But I was also playing piano. I was actually in a few bands where I played both.
Really?
But the trombone did not stick with me.
Mm-hmm.
But we have a trombone player in our new Wild Blue Herons band who is just fantastic. He studied with Ian McDougall.
Yeah.
Who is just one of the greats.
Mm-hmm.
And Tom Keelyside, who's also one of the greats.
Absolutely. So
getting to write for these horn players has been a total joy, and it changes the dynamic of the band because, when you have one horn player in the band, which we always did,
yeah,
he's almost like a guy in the rhythm section where he's finding his way, he's finding a place to fill. And
yeah,
now it's way more organized.
yeah.
I mean, they can still fill outside of the arrangement, but they don't really need to.
Yeah.
So it frees up other locations for the piano player to play a fill, and totally fun. We're having a gas with it, and it's an unfortunate time to be playing music in some ways because there's so few places to play.
Yes. Especially in Vancouver. I think it's probably a thing that is true in a lot of cities. I think it is especially true in Vancouver that we have lost over the last 20 years is when I have really seen it. And quite possibly it's been going on longer than that, but I think that we have lost a huge number of live music venues. And it has become such a small selection of places in the Vancouver Lower Mainland that even book live music of any genre. It's a weird thing. There's just not a lot to choose from. There's like the Commodore and the Orpheum, if you're going to, medium and large scale venues, but the little rooms, and especially when you think of the emerging artists coming up, like, I don't know, when I was at that stage of my career, I was out on the road playing somewhere in BC in a pub somewhere every weekend. That opportunity doesn't exist now to be out getting your sea legs by just doing it a whole bunch. The people I work with now, they have the opportunity to play live like maybe one night every 2 months.
Yeah.
There's just no opportunity.
And you know that thing about the 10,000 hours?
Yep.
Well, it's going to be really hard to do that when
sure
you're playing once every 2 months.
Yeah.
We, on the other hand, when we were late 20s, early 30s, we were playing 6 nights a week.
Yeah.
Every week. And in Quebec, it was 7 nights a week.
Yeah.
Which I don't miss, but...
And hell on the singers.
It was hard work, yeah. Back in those days, my retirement was going to be playing quietly in the corner in a hotel 6 nights a week. I thought that would be a nice thing to look forward to when you want to stop touring.
Yeah.
Those gigs aren't there anymore.
Nope.
There might be a few. There are some bands still touring, like Mariana's Trench.
Yes.
We saw a great band from Brooklyn a few weeks ago at the Commodore, a band called Lawrence. I
was so sad when I found out about that show. It was already sold out.
Yeah, don't get me started about that.
Oh, yes, I know there's issues with tickets and reselling, and it's a whole cluster, but
it is. And the main dude in Lawrence is actually one of the guys who's fighting that.
Well, what I know is that it is a thing that is out of the control of the artist.
Yeah.
And the challenge is that audiences don't always understand that it's out of the control of the artist. And so that can be a challenging pathway, because it's fantastic. It's fantastic that he is fighting that, because part of the challenge is that anybody who is going to speak up and fight it then faces an inability to find venues to play.
Yeah, I guess so. Although there's quite a widespread fight going on. Mm-hmm. It's certainly not him, but he has been a spokesman. Mm-hmm. But back to touring.
Yes.
Fantastic band. Really great band.
Yeah.
Again, just like Jacob Collier, I have so much faith in the future.
Yeah.
When there's musicians like that coming around. Really good players, really good songs, nice presentation,
Yeah. I only very recently came across them. And it was, I'm wondering if it was actually maybe even from something that you posted online because it was something somebody else posted that, a friend probably on Facebook or something that came across, and I went and listened to the clip and went, wait a minute, I need to listen to a lot more of this. And I don't listen to a lot of music. I find, interestingly enough, I find it very difficult to listen to music because I can't do it. I can't do it from a place of enjoyment. I can't do it without constantly analyzing.
Oh, okay.
And I think that's since I really started teaching a lot. I can't do it without really analyzing what I'm listening to all the time. So I can't just be a listener and enjoy. It takes up a different space in my brain. So I end up listening to audiobooks and stuff like that. But if I have music on, it's usually classical music or something like that that doesn't involve my brain in that analytical way. I'm, analyzing chord structure. I'm whatever. Like, I can't turn my brain off.
Very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think
I find it sad.
Yeah, I'm wired a little bit that way, but I can really enjoy music. I mean, I find music's like the best drug of all time. It releases endorphins or whatever. And I got to say that band, well, all the musicians that I've been mentioning, they do that for me. Mm-hmm. I get very, very satisfied listening to them. And before that, it was Snarky Puppy and Corey Henry.
Oh, I don't know who that is.
He was one of their keyboard players.
Okay.
He took a solo which launched his career.
Yeah.
Just one solo with Snarky Puppy, and the guy is now set for life, I hope.
Wow.
He's about maybe 30.
Yeah.
Another New York-based musician. We went to New York a couple of years ago and heard him with his band. I can't remember the name, but Corey Henry and the Funk Apostles or something like that.
Yeah.
We got to help you, Sarah. You got to start enjoying music again.
I know. Well, I find that if I want to listen to music for enjoyment, it has to be music that I knew before. Honestly, like from my younger self, that was probably before my brain kicked into that analytic mode. So I can listen to music that I loved in my teens and 20s, and my brain doesn't turn on that way. But if I listen to music that's new now, I analyze it as I listen to it, and it's hard to get to a place where I just get to enjoy it. Yeah.
That's very interesting.
Yeah. I wish it was different because I love music.
Yeah, of course.
But there is that hurdle for me. And actually, I talked to my brother, and he said that he has the same, not that he doesn't enjoy music. And I shouldn't say that I don't enjoy music. It's not that. It's that I can't listen to it from a place of purely enjoyment. You
can't lose yourself?
No, I can't lose myself in it. And he said the same thing. He can't listen to it without analyzing what is happening harmonically and rhythmically and, all that kind of stuff.
Wow. Well, thinking about one of my favorite concerts that I ever heard was a band called the Dixie Dregs. Mm-hmm. Guitar player Steve Morse. And they played the Commodore way long time ago. Mm-hmm. And I got lost.
Yeah.
As did everybody else at the Commodore that night. We were all just floating around listening to this guy play the guitar. Maybe you need to listen to some Dregs.
Maybe I do. I have to go look that up. Sort of along the lines of the live music piece, you and Darlene are actually quite involved in creating, promoting, and supporting live music in a couple of ways. You guys have created a live music series in Port Moody. Am I correct in that?
You are correct.
Yes. And you now have a sort of a house concert series that you are running. Do you want to talk about those things?
Sure. Yeah. We started this series of concerts at the Inlet Theatre in Port Moody. It's a nice little theater. It holds 200 people. It's got great sound, great lights, great crew.
Nice size.
Nice size.
Yeah.
And people are coming.
Yeah.
We're bringing quality music. We're not bringing in any tribute bands.
Yeah.
Not that there's really a problem with tribute bands, but we just don't want to encourage that. There's lots of places for them to play.
Yeah.
And we're in our third season, so it's working. Yeah. And the house series, it started just before COVID, and then it had to stop. And we're started up again now. We're doing about one a month. Mm-hmm. And when this podcast comes out, we will have just done Sherry Elric and one more that we haven't quite decided.
Yeah.
But it's a beautiful, intimate way to present music and also to support the music community, which is something we want to do. We approach producing concerts from the musician's perspective.
Yeah.
So we want to make sure it's a very comfortable environment for them. Mm-hmm. Good money, good sound, food, all the things that we've come to love about, going to a show. And sometimes it's just not there.
Yeah. Well, and I know we were talking about this a little bit before we started recording, but you've also started doing this house concert series, which I just think is super cool. That you're, sort of creating that experience and opening your home up that way. But there's in a period of time where there are fewer and fewer places to hear live music. And what I was saying before we hit record too was I think as we speak to different generations, the priority is different too. I know when I was 20, listening to the live music was part of the experience, but I wanted to drink and I wanted to party and I wanted to dance and I wanted to do whatever. At age 50 something, I am not interested in actually any of those things, to be perfectly honest. What I would like to do is sit and listen to the musicians play and hear the actual show. So I think setting it up in that kind of environment where it's intimate, it's a small group of people who are all there to actually listen to the music rather than it being background. And Darlene was saying there's a real sort of community aspect to it where there's munchies and people bring their own drinks and whatever. I just think it's a really cool experience that you are creating. And I know people have been doing house concerts for a while, but I think it's a little different than a house concert series. You're making it a regular thing.
We are.
Yeah.
One thing we found that in booking two series in the same part of the world, little town called Port Moody, we have to be careful not to oversaturate our concerts. Certainly we have to be careful not to book the same artists too close together. And there's another series happening in Port Moody called the Summer Concert Series, Summer Sundays, I think they call it. And they're booking pretty big acts, and it's free to the public. The bands all get paid. Now, this creates a problem for us because we're now presenting music and we want to pay the bands too. But we now have to charge ticket prices at the door. And people who have seen a band for free are not going to pay $35 to come in and see that band several months later. A year later, it's a different story. But so there's all these things that we're learning as we go about being careful. And there's things I didn't think about when I was just being a musician. And now that I'm a presenter, I'm very aware of who's not charging a door
Yeah.
cover charge,
Yeah.
and who's playing everywhere.
Yeah.
Because we can't hire them then.
Yeah.
If they're playing everywhere, we have to find people who aren't available in our part of the world. So we're a little bit better off than, say, in Vancouver, because Port Moody is far enough away from Vancouver that people can play all the time in Vancouver and never play in Port Moody. Well, there's no place to play.
Yeah.
There's just our gig.
Just at your house.
Yeah. There used to be a lovely place to play called the Gallery Bistro.
Yeah.
And that's someplace we played a few times. We did a songwriting workshop there, and it burned down.
Oh.
The only place to play.
So sad.
Yeah.
So sad.
But two of the folks that ran that joint, Helen Daniels and Nan Nikolai, are on our team for the Inlet Theatre, and they're fantastic. They have a huge mailing list, and they're really just great at getting volunteers together. And so Darlene and I are kind of producing the concerts, and we're doing the business side of things, and they're doing the actual
Marketing side, kind of.
Well, we kind of do that too, but they're all involved, and they're doing the piece that puts the volunteers together.
Yeah.
That's huge.
It is.
There's like 20 people involved.
Yeah. Yeah. Volunteer coordination, recruitment and coordination, that's no joke.
It's the ushers and the people selling merch and hanging coats, all this stuff. So there's stuff that we don't have to do. We've got two people in the green room helping out with the food. So it's a well-oiled team, and you know, we do it right because we've done it enough wrong when we've been the musicians involved.
Yeah.
Now we want it to be a really good experience so that the bands leave wanting to come back, right?
Yeah. That's it. Just all bookings should be done by musicians for musicians.
Exactly.
So that all the gigs are fantastic.
And if we could just extend that to other aspects of the music scene,
right?
Record companies should be run by musicians.
Yes.
Podcast producers should be musicians.
Yeah. All the things. You have won a lot of awards and recognition. So get comfortable because I'm going to list them now. In 2003, you were inducted into the BC Entertainment Hall of Fame. In 2010, you received both a Lifetime Achievement Award and Most Influential Jazz Musician from the Royal Canadian Music Project. And your band, Sample Stern's band, received the Most Influential Group Award. In 2013, you were awarded the Queen's Diamond Jubilee Medal. And in 2014, you, along with Bob Sarti, were awarded an Ovation Award for the, I'm not going to say that right, Raymer Mothers, a musical. What do you think creates a career with that kind of A, longevity, and B, recognition?
I'm stumped.
Yeah? Fair?
Lucky.
Yeah.
Fortunate. Working with the right people. I was pretty surprised when I got the call, BC Entertainment Hall of Fame. It was Dal Richards who called and said, "Hey, we're gonna put a star in the sidewalk." And I went, "What? This can't be. Have you got the right number?" Anyway, it happened. And since then, I've helped out with the BC Entertainment Hall of Fame. I've helped introduce new members, you know, some posthumously, which was very intense. I got to introduce Doug Bennett when he got his star, and I got to introduce Robbie King when he got his. So yeah, that's been an interesting journey.
Yeah.
But I just don't know. I don't know why I get awards. I'm grateful for them. They're like little things I put on my shelf.
Yep. My favorite awards, this is a total aside. My favorite awards story, I think it's Kate Winslet. She keeps her Oscar in the bathroom so that when people are at her house and they use the washroom, they can have their moment in front of the mirror where they get to make their, imagined Oscar acceptance speech. And she said she can always tell when people are doing it because they take just a little bit longer in the loo.
That's a great story.
Share the love. So let's talk about the differences when you're the artist, or it's your trio or your duo, or it's your project, versus when you're working as a sideman or a band member for another artist. I know we talked a bit about the musical director piece already, but what's different about those roles when you're the artist or it's your project versus when you're a band member for somebody else?
I wonder if I could just take it into the studio instead of on the stage. Like, I've noticed sometimes I would get calls for a session and the room is full of people who are all producers.
Yep.
And they've all learned how to shut up.
Yep.
So that the producer can produce.
Yeah.
And I guess that spills over onto the stage too. So you're used to being a music director, used to having your own band. You know how you would do it.
Yeah.
But it's their band and you have to let them do it. I mean, of course, you're going to make suggestions if you can make something better. But it's important to if it's somebody's personal project, let it be their project and don't try to take over or upstage. That would be my suggestion.
Yeah. I can relate to that. I think, like as a singer, being a lead singer versus being hired as a Bee Gee singer, it's a similar thing. When you're a Bee Gee singer, you have to shut the hell up and take direction and not probably make a lot of suggestions. And I mean, occasionally a suggestion, but also depending on the relationship with the person. But mostly you just need to do what they're asking for. And some of us had to learn that the hard way.
It's a learn as you go kind of career.
It is. So yes, that's why we try to share the nuggets of wisdom, right? Shorten the road.
I do enjoy being a sideman.
Yeah.
It has some perks that come with it that you might not find in your own band. For example, I have to preface this little story by saying that at one point I was a lead singer.
Really? I didn't know that.
As well as a keyboard player.
I mean, I know you sing, but I didn't know that you were a lead singer.
Yeah, in the Sample Stearns band, I was one of the main singers. And that's when we were trying to get a production deal with David Foster.
Yeah.
So he remembered me or kind of identified me as a singing keyboard player. Okay, flash forward. It's now 30 years later, and I'm on stage with the David Foster band. And he says, "Hey, Bill and Maury, would you guys go with Peter? Peter. Cetera. Thank you so much. Would you go with Peter Cetera and learn these background vocals?" And I'm, whoa. So, a bunch of options went through my brain there in a nanosecond. Like one would be, no, David, I'm not that guy anymore. But of course, I didn't go there. I went, oh yeah, let's go do it. And, I don't think anybody had a bad experience. I certainly had a good experience. Holy crap, that guy's a good singer.
Yeah.
So that's a sort of a sideman story that, you're not going to find too many of those kind of stories in your own band, probably.
Unless you're surprising yourself by requesting unexpected things of yourself. What have you found to be the most helpful things in your career in terms of like networking, or developing relationships that lead to opportunities, getting in the right rooms with the right people kind of thing? So again, thinking about the fact that we're talking primarily to artists who are earlier in their careers. What do you have there?
It might be different now than it used to be.
It might be.
We were working with our friends.
Yeah.
We had probably, I guess, in some respects, it was a benefit not to be living in a major music center like Nashville or Los Angeles, because we didn't have the industry to deal with. There was no industry here.
Yeah.
Just a little bit, network records and that kind of thing. 604 records. But certainly I grew up in Victoria and moved to Vancouver when I was 30. So I started to meet some of the industry people, but like Bruce Allen and Sam Feldman, Cliff, who managed Valdy and Sherry and Claire.
Okay. Yeah. I don't know his last name.
Jones.
Okay.
Yeah. Nowadays, I things are so different. There's less music infrastructure in Vancouver. There's fewer places to play. I don't want to sound like a doom and gloom here, but it's all personal relationships.
Yeah.
I don't know that you can like go to the yellow pages and look up record producers.
No, you search the hashtag on social media now.
Well, I don't have a lot of experience promoting records, but this record that we made during COVID, since there was no expenses, it was just Darlene and I, and we did it at home. We had zero expenses. The record cost us zero. We spent all the money on promotion. Which was a very interesting experience. We found a company in Toronto. They sent it everywhere. We got airplay, we got reviews, we got on the charts. I would recommend to people to do that.
Yeah.
We all know people who make records who they never get out of their basement, right? And I'm sure I have a few of those as well.
Oh my gosh. I have thrown away more. I have thrown away more of my records than I have ever actually sold. Yeah.
Well, that's the other thing, right? Is we don't know what revenue streams have changed so much.
So much.
And I'm not sure it's finished changing.
Oh, I think that's going to be forever in flux, but we're at the point we're at right now, and it's a weird landscape for.
It is. People are trying different approaches. Like Lawrence just sold vinyl.
Really?
At the Commodore. We tried to buy each other the record for Christmas last year, and unbeknownst, tried to buy it for each other, right? And we went to their website, which is the only place you can get it.
Yeah.
It was like $40 US.
Yeah.
But then it was like $50 shipping. So we both decided not to do it.
It's the downside of living in Canada, I think. Trying to buy American product. Yeah.
But anyway, they didn't have CDs or download cards.
Yeah.
Their merch was strictly vinyl and clothing. Yeah, I'm not sure how everybody else is doing it, but we're still selling CDs.
Yeah.
And people are still buying them. We've even considered selling little CD players at gigs.
Ah,
If you could get it for $15 and sell it for 20.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, it's interesting with the resurgence of vinyl too. I did not know this. This may not come as a shock to you, but it came as a huge shock to me that it takes like 6 months to get vinyl pressed. So the pre-roll on organization for actually having that to sell is huge. So for artists who have a release date, they have to have their masters in hand so far ahead of release.
Yeah.
That's some big planning.
Yeah, that's something that probably will change if vinyl continues to go strong.
Probably.
Because the whole vinyl industry got dismantled.
Yeah.
And now it's slowly coming back. It took us 6 months to get our vinyl.
Yeah.
For our second album. 6 months.
Yeah. That's crazy. And I think everybody went digital for so long. Like we got rid of all our CD players, CDs, just because of space, frankly. And we weren't listening that way out of convenience. We were listening off of iTunes and even the stuff that we had already bought. Like generationally, I still see my kids and stuff. It's all Apple Music and Spotify, and that's how they listen to music. I think that as we see things less stable with some of the listening platforms, like there can be contract issues and all of a sudden an artist's catalog can disappear from the DSPs. And now it doesn't matter that you have even bought that on Apple Music or whatever. You don't have that music anymore because it's been taken off. I think we're going to see a circle back to actually owning a physical copy in one form or another, whether that's CDs or vinyl or whatever. I think there's going to be at least a component of that becomes more prevalent again. So I know.
I really hope you're right.
Yeah.
For the sake of all musicians who are trying to make a living.
The income from streaming it's
not worth it.
Pitiful.
Yeah. Somebody said, if you, at one point, if you had a hit record, you could go out and buy a house with a pool.
Yeah.
Today, if you have a hit record, you might be able to afford a cup of coffee.
Right.
I think Taylor Swift could just go out and buy Spotify and then tear it down.
I wish she would. But she hasn't yet. Yeah. Is there anything that you see often missed or misunderstood by artists, writers, musicians?
I think one thing that I'm grateful for that I think most of the younger musicians seem to have missed is the union. I'm living on a union pension. I know people my age who didn't file contracts who are still having to schlep gear and go to their weekend gigs, right?
My dad lived on a union pension too. So I saw that one firsthand.
But a lot of the people who I hire for sessions are not members of the union even. And you can't, I mean, I can't even put them on the contract. I have to pay them, separately, and they don't get their pension perks. Yeah. I try to explain this to people, but the sort of, oh my God, I can't be bothered, this file all that paperwork, pay my union dues. There's no union work, blah, blah, blah. You have to create your own union work. And people can do it. Every single gig you do, you can file a contract. The union has tried to make it so easy to do. Yeah. And people still don't do it.
And just for clarity, for anyone who's watching that isn't familiar, you're specifically talking about the musicians union.
The musicians union, yes. Yeah, to me, the musicians union pension fund is one of the better pension funds. It's not indexed like some, big pension funds are. It's not indexed to inflation, but geez, it, comes in real handy. It's not an insignificant amount of money.
Yeah. Yeah. I know a lot of musicians who only ever joined the musicians union because it was the only place you could insure your gear. And that was the only reason they ever joined. And I don't think they ever filed a contract. They just did it to insure their gear, which seems like a waste. I also know this has probably changed. But I remember my mom telling me that so this is many years ago. And so this is why I'm saying it has likely changed. But in her day, you could not join the musicians union as a singer. She had to join the musicians union as a tambourine player.
Oh, I remember that. Yeah.
Because you couldn't join as a singer.
Yeah, there used to be some things in the union that were really nasty to deal with. Like I joined in Victoria.
Yeah. And
then when I moved to Vancouver, I had to transfer. And there was a period of time where I couldn't work more than 3 nights a week or something, some sort of weird little thing like that. And the same thing, I moved to Toronto and I joined the union there, and I had to wait a period of time before I could take union work in Toronto. That was to protect their membership, I guess.
That you were joining?
Yeah. But that seems to be gone now. They've tried to make it more inclusive and easier to be a member.
Yeah.
So it's a good club to join.
Yeah.
I recommend it.
Is there anything else that you think is really important for us to touch on, or important for up and coming artists to know that we have not talked about today?
Don't give up.
Yeah.
Keep it going. I mean, you might not have much success for a long time, but I just heard this recently, and I can't remember the quote exactly, but if you love what you do and you just keep doing it, eventually it'll turn into something.
Yes.
So yeah, just keep doing it. Don't give up.
Yeah. Agreed. Agreed. So let's talk about where people can find you, anything that's coming up.
We are playing Wild Blue Herons show at Bez Arts on March the 7th.
Yes. Okay.
You can find out more about that at wildblueherons.com.
Very good. And we also have, I'm going to read out a couple of your other handles here. We also have billsamplemusic.com, which would be, I'm guessing, your site.
Yep.
Facebook, you are bill.sample.963. And on Instagram, at samp33.
Right.
So we'll drop all those in the show notes as well. But do Blue Herons have an Instagram, or just yes? We're consulting the social media manager in the corner at Wild Blue Herons on Instagram and Facebook. Yeah, we'll drop all of those in the show notes too. Well, thank you very much for joining me today, Bill. It's just really fun to hang out and chat. And
it has been. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like you. You're a fun person. And I've known you a long time. So it's just really fun to get to sit down and kind of talk shop.
Me too.
Yeah.
Thank you.